Got it.
And welcome to the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota Grady. Thank y'all for joining us today. It's a beautiful day here in South Carolina. It's cold, but it's a beautiful day. Sun shining outside. And I have a guest. Well, before we get started, if you need help with your personal finances, I know it's tax season, so you may be getting a large refund. Don't splurge and blow it if you got a ton of debt. Handle that money right. Pay off your debt. Oh, you don't want to pay off your debt? Well, stay in debt then. And then stay worried. And stay stressed out. Stay broke. Oh, so pay off the debt. Or get me to coach you. DakotaGrady.com is the website to get coaches. And if you need help with your accounting and taxes for your business, if you're an NP, a nurse practitioner, or a nurse-preneur, contact me today at DakotaGrady.com and we can get you squared away with your accounting and taxes. So my guest today is Tiffany Gibson of the New Nurse Academy. And Tiffany, I learned today she's from Jamaica, but I can't tell. So I wanted to have Tiffany on the show today, showcase her skills as a nurse-preneur and a nurse. So without further ado, Tiffany, welcome back to the show.
Hello there. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Yes, ma'am. So tell everybody about who you are and what you do, Tiffany.
Yes, my name is Tiffany Gibson, and I am your favorite educator's favorite educator. I am a nurse by trade. I am certified in pediatrics. I am a nurse educator and professional development specialist. Currently, I work as a nurse manager for 5 primary care sites, but we are here to talk about New Nurse Academy, which is my baby. It is my nursing education and consulting business that I started in 2017, and it's grown into offering emotional intelligence, business strategy, leadership skills to the bedside nurse so that they can grow in their fields.
So tell me everybody about how you started your business. Like why did you start it? What encouraged you, inspired you to do it?
I needed more money. That's why I started my business. It was easy for me to have a side hustle because nurses usually work 3 days a week if they work in the hospital. And I was a single mom at the time. My baby was really young. And while I was making good money as a nurse, I had a lot of expenses that I was responsible for by myself. And wanting to put my child in a really good preschool, and I bought my first home in 2016. So just wanted to have some money saved for that. I started something new. And also I wanted to help the students that I was teaching. And so a way for me to kill 2 birds with 1 stone was to open up an LLC so my students can pay me on the side for the tutoring that I was giving them. And then it allowed me to generate more income. And that's how New Nurse Academy started.
Wow. And so it has grown from talking on IG Live, it's grown from talking about nursing to now emotional intelligence as well as leadership. Talk about that. Why did you make this shift?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you so much for asking. I made the shift from nursing tutoring and helping my students pass their exams to emotional intelligence because I realized that I can teach you about anatomy and physiology until the cows come home. But if you are stressed out about anything else in life, what I'm teaching you is not going to be absorbed. What I'm teaching you is not going to make sense. What you have going on that's stressing you out is going to take priority over this content. And then when you fail the test, you don't know why, right? Well, it's because you didn't get enough sleep. It's because you're arguing at home. It's because you're taking on somebody else's stress. It's because you're mad at your teacher. You're mad at your boss. You're mad at your whatever. So I started shifting into emotional intelligence because I realized no matter what I do as a nurse educator, it's not going to make sense if you yourself don't have yourself together. And that is step 1 in emotional intelligence, is self-awareness. It's knowing you, knowing your thoughts, knowing your feelings, because they drive your decision-making. And if you can understand that, then everything else should be easy to manage.
So why did you specifically, how did you get interested in emotional intelligence? Because it's something that, I mean, who would want to get into that? Like, tell me why you specifically get into that. I'm curious.
Honestly, because being emotionally intelligent helped me out as a single mom. That's really when I started. So 2 things happened simultaneously. First, I became a single mother, and that wasn't even in the forecast. right? I was in what I thought was a loving relationship. We were together for a long time. I got pregnant by accident, and I'm going to say by accident because I was on birth control and it failed. And so it wasn't something that we planned, right? And it was something that we tried to have protection measures over, and it didn't work out. And that's, that's life. But I thought because we were established in our careers, we were over 30, we were together, that we could at least be together and co-parent, if not, not romantically, but platonically. And that still didn't happen. And so as a high achieving Black woman, I took that extremely personal. I was upset. I was mad. He left me while I was pregnant, and that broke me down to my core. I was going to doctor visits by myself. I live in a city that's 2 hours away from all my family, and so I was literally going through my pregnancy alone, and that rocked me to my core. And then one day I woke up and realized everything I'm feeling, my baby's feeling. Every stress hormone that is going through my body is going through my baby's body, and that's not fair. I don't want my baby to be born stressed. I don't want my baby to be born colicky. I don't want my baby to be born with anxiousness because they feel it running through me. And yes, I'm a nurse, so I really understand anatomy and all that other stuff. And the first sound that my baby hears is my heartbeat. And so if I have high blood pressure because I'm stressed, that means my heart is also pumping really hard. And I want it to be a soothing sound, right? I want my body to be a safe haven for my child. So I have to get myself together. I have to get my thoughts together. I have to get my feelings together, and I have to move on. And that is when I really started understanding the importance of emotional intelligence without even knowing what it meant, but I understood the concept then. Fast forward a whole bunch of years later, 2018, I was taking a course on healthcare diversity and inclusion, and we were talking about just people and how they respond to other people. Why do people react to people who are different than them? Like why do you care what my religion is, or why do you care what my skin color is, or why do you care how I sexually identify? And that has to do with us, right? It has to do with your perception of the world and the morals and values and beliefs that were instilled in you, and what you deem to be right. So I learned about emotional intelligence that way, and that's when I understood what it was by name and by definition.
That's good, because one thing I've dealt with in terms of emotional intelligence is anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I read the book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
Talked about that stimulus and the response. The gap between those things is your ability to choose choices.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, it's powerful, because we have a choice to make, whether it's good or bad. We decide to make a decision, whether it's to hit somebody, to curse them out, to not hit somebody, whatever it may be. We have a choice to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think about that just recently. I saw something online about the Memphis thing that happened in Memphis. And I'm like, man, those guys did that to that one guy. The cop did it to one guy. Like, how can they go home now? They can't go home.
Right.
I mean, they have children. Like, I got 2 daughters. If I want to do something like that, I can't go see my daughters, my wife. I'm like, you gotta think, like, if I do this, what are the ramifications of me doing this thing? Whether it's good or bad. What is it? How is they're going to affect my family, that other person's family, and
Yeah.
their children? It's like,
Yeah.
it's heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I know even in nursing, people have even recently died. Nurses have died because of some stuff. And I'm like, how can we, in your opinion, improve how nurses are treated in the field?
It's that's a very heavy question, because nurses have been mistreated even before we talk about COVID and what COVID did to rock the nursing world. I don't think people realize all that nurses go through. I appreciate that the pandemic has highlighted all that nurses go through and the lack of resources and support from leadership and admin that's not there. But the pandemic did not take away that support. That support was never there. The pandemic accelerated the non-support. The pandemic continued to widen that gap between the resources and what's needed. Nurses make a lot of tough decisions at work, and I don't think people realize that too. Specifically, nurses who work in the hospital setting where your patients are the sickest, right? They're in the hospital because they cannot be treated at home. No one goes to the hospital for a good time. No one. And if you go to the hospitals because something is wrong, and even those who give birth in a hospital setting, you're more likely to die giving birth in a hospital setting than you are at home. And as someone who just gave birth 4.5 months ago, that was the first thing that I thought of. And I said that to my doctor. I do not want to become a statistic. I need you to listen to me. And so nurses, we make a lot of hard decisions. We have people's lives in our hands, literally. We do not get paid what we should for the work that we do. And a lot of the decisions that we make affect us. We go home and we think about our patients. We sometimes make errors and mistakes that can be detrimental or deadly. And we think about that and that holds on to us. We also know that sometimes we are changing people's lives and people are so appreciative and grateful for the things that we do. And we hold on to that too. It's a thankless job, but you're right. The things that we do affect us. And it affects us over time for the long run. And I don't think people realize, or maybe now they do because nurses have been in the news a lot more lately, but I don't think people realize what we go through mentally in this profession, mentally and emotionally.
So I have a client now that has, I do accounting and taxes for MPs, right? For the practitioners. And I have a client who focuses on improving the quality of healthcare for Black women. So talk about that statistic you mentioned earlier. Do Black women die more than white women when it comes to birth in the nursing, in the medical field or in the hospital?
Yes, they do.
Why is that? Do you know why?
Yes, it has to do with implicit bias. That's it. It has to do with implicit bias. It has to do with Black women not being taken seriously when we have a complaint. It has to do with Black women not getting all the treatment and diagnostic testing that we should get. It has Black women not having the benefit of the doubt. It has to do with Black women being perceived as having a higher pain tolerance than others, or that we are complaining too much, or that we don't know what we're talking about. But here's the thing also, Dakota, Black educated women are more likely to die at a faster rate than any other race. So it's not even the Black woman that doesn't have the resources. It's the Black women that are educated with the resources that die quicker, sooner, faster in labor and delivery. Look at Serena Williams. She went through a lot after the birth of her child. She was not heard, and she had a blood clot in her lungs and was telling people something doesn't feel right. Something is off. I feel pain. And they kept telling her that's normal. Well, you just had a baby, that's normal. And it turned out to be a blood clot. And so that is why Black women die at a higher rate than any other race. We're not being heard.
That's terrible. That's sad because I'm married to a Black woman. I mean, my wife, she's Black. My mom's Black, So my daughter's Black. That's bad business. How do you think we can improve that? I mean, because the medical field is white dominated, basically, male dominated, right? So you know that. I mean, and even when I see where I live, there's a hospital close to me. I went to the doctor to take my daughter there. I was astonished at how many Black people I saw in there. I was surprised. I'm like, again, the medical field is mostly white. So how can we improve healthcare for Black women in general?
Yeah. While the medical field is mostly white and male dominated, the nursing field is mostly white but female dominated. So that right there is a difference. I spent majority of my pregnancy going to nurse practitioners. And that to me was a difference. Towards the end of my pregnancy, I started seeing the attending physician. And even with that, I had to have some back and forth with her too, where I'm like, where are you coming up with this? What is your decision making? What is it based on? Is it based on my race? Is it based on my age? Is it based on whatever? But majority of my prenatal visits were seen by a nurse practitioner. I will tell Black women to first go to a doctor that is of your same race, because a lot of the cultural nuances are already understood. And then secondly, if you can go to a nurse practitioner, the type of training that they have is more patient-centered because they used to be nurses. And so how they approach patients is just different than someone who was trained as a physician. And so I would say go to a Black person and then go to a Black nurse practitioner if you can.
It's good right there because from what I tell, I mean, think about it, nurses are in the field longer than doctors are. Because while nurses are
It
in the
depends.
field on the floor, doctors are still studying. Is that fair to say?
It depends. It's both experience. I wouldn't compare because it's apples and oranges. And it's both experiences. You're right though, that nursing school is not as long as medical school. And so I can work as a professional longer than a physician. You're right. A medical student has a lot more to do. And then after medical school, they're still technically in training, right? They're residents, and then there's different levels to residency before you could become an attending. But to me, it's all experience, right? You're still getting that clinical experience, whether I'm getting paid for it as a professional or I'm interning as a medical student, I'm still learning. But the approach to the experience is different. Whereas the nurse spends more time with the patient and the physician spends more time understanding the disease and treating the disease, right? And so the approach to the person is different. Yeah,
But it's still patient care though. But
it
I
is.
guess depends on if you're the time is most spent with the nurse opposed to the doctor. The doctor trying to figure out the solution to the problem. Is it fair to say?
Right, right,
Got you.
right.
So um, I didn't mean to go like that deep, but I guess it led there. So because I don't have a script, I just go off the cuff, off the cuff. So let's
Right.
talk about business. In the IG, you mentioned about starting a business,
Yeah.
and then the balance thing. I asked you like, how can you balance being a single mom, working a job, and a business? Like, how do you do it, or how do you do it, if anything?
I have a team. I don't do it. Here's the thing too. I want Black women to take off their cape and realize that you cannot be superwoman and you cannot do it all. You cannot save everybody, and you shouldn't have to, and you shouldn't have to feel like you do. I am at a point now in my life where I will pay for convenience and I will pay for somebody else to do it. I have groceries that I get delivered to the house. I can say the last time I went grocery shopping in a store, everything is delivered through Amazon Prime. I have a housekeeper that comes every 5 weeks to deep clean the house. If I'm about to outsource my laundry in a minute because I'm tired of doing laundry and I'm tired of folding, I am comfortable in my life where I will use my extra income to have somebody else do it, so that I can spend my time doing what I want to do. I don't want to spend 6 hours on Saturday cleaning this house top to bottom. Let somebody else who enjoys cleaning clean. That's how I'm able to do it all. That's how I am able to still be the mom, still be the wife, still be the business owner, still be the nurse, because I'm not spending my time doing things that take up a lot of time and things that I don't want to do. I don't want to do it. I don't. Cooking is not something that I want to do. I'd rather order. I'd rather go to a great restaurant. I'd rather Uber Eats. And when I feel like making something, I'll do it and it'll be good, but I don't want to be slaving away, because here's the thing. It is not fair that I work 40 hours a week and then still have to come around and maintain the house to the level that people expect me to maintain it. Because when do I have time for my passions? When do I have time for my needs and to do what I want to do? When do I have time to sleep? When do I have time to just stand in the shower and let the hot water run cold? I can't if the baby's crying and the food has to be cooked and I got to go to the supermarket. I can't do those things. And listen, I'm the soft life. I can't have the soft life if I don't have a village.
You know what? That's like real and super dope because when you get money, you pay people to do stuff you don't want to do, basically.
Yes, yes,
And that's what
absolutely.
I think that's what real freedom really is. It's not just the money, it's the money to do stuff and pay people to do stuff that you don't want to do. And to
Yes.
free up you to have more time to do things you want to do. That's like that. That's dope.
It is. And if you look at people who have money, they do the same. It's to me, it's an investment, right? Like, how can I free up my time? My time should not equate money. It shouldn't. I shouldn't have to exchange my time for money. And when you look at people who are wealthy, they have teams of people that help them maintain their passive income or just to help them maintain their lifestyle. You know, like I couldn't tell you the last time I mowed a lawn or shoveled snow or did anything like that. I hire somebody to do that. You know, like I don't know. It's just, but I also worked to get here. It wasn't always like this. There was a lot of late nights and early mornings for me to get to a spot where I'm comfortable enough to say, pay somebody to do that.
So talk about that part right there. Talk about the single mom that you were before you had the ability to pay somebody. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, it was a lot of organization, right? So I would work my W-2 job. That's what I called it. I would work my W-2 job. And then I still had to be present for my daughter. It was a lot of times when there was mom guilt where I felt like I wasn't as present as I should have been because while we were on the couch watching TV, my laptop was open and I'm creating a website or I'm, on the back end trying to put things together, answering emails or whatever. But it was a lot of waking up super early before she woke up and before we started our day together. And it was going to bed really late after she went to sleep and I cleaned the house up. And now I have a couple of a couple of hours to myself. It was a lot of that for a long time until I found what worked for me. And that's the other thing about business. You see other people do business and you want to do it like them because they appear to be successful, but it doesn't work for you because it wasn't meant to work for you. One, what they're showing you could be a facade. Two, it works for them in their life, in their households. As a single mom with limited childcare resources and limited funds, I couldn't just hire an assistant right away. Now I have two. So it took time and it also took trial and error to figure out what worked for me.
Mm, I like that. So we got a couple minutes. I want to give you the floor to talk about. Earlier, I mentioned just two things that you think people should get when starting a business. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, so you want to start a business, you need to understand the business plan of having a business. No one talks about the business plan, right? And in the business plan, you're talking about what is the solution, who is your target audience, and what is your projected funds. People go into a business because they think it's lucrative. And it may well be, but is it lucrative for your neighborhood? Is it lucrative does your target audience know who you are and what you're offering? And does your target audience want to pay you? To me, there's a difference between target audience and soulmate clients. My target audience can be any nurse, right? I'm New Nurse Academy. Any nurse can be my target audience. My soulmate client, though, is different. Like my soulmate client is the nurse who's ready to take that leap into leadership. It's that nurse who wants to know about emotional intelligence. It's that nurse who wants to grow and they feel the desire to grow and they're looking for the help to grow. That's not every nurse. And I think in business, we think, well, I'm going to open up an IV hydration business because I can make six figures. Great. But if you live in the middle of nowhere, then how many people are going to come to you for IV hydration? And your overhead cost is probably more than what you're making a month. Like it doesn't add up. Does IV hydration make good money? Yes, in the areas where there's income potential. I don't think people spend enough time thinking about the plan and the prospects of their business and how it's going to generate. That's why New Nurse Academy has made different turns and has grown at different seasons, because I realized tutoring is not lucrative anymore. It's time for me to offer something else. And then I offered something else, and that kind of got saturated, and it was time for me to do something else. But also, I grew with my audience. As my audience grew and they got to a different level of their career, I realized that I had to offer something else to meet them at the level they were at. I can no longer order tutoring service and hold on to that same client if they've already passed the test, got licensed, and now they're working. They will never be my client anymore. So how do I retain them as a client? I now have to offer them something that they need. I don't think people are thinking that far ahead. They're just thinking, what is going to make me the most money now? And that
Mm,
is the problem.
mm, I like that. So you mentioned, so basically, I think you mentioned earlier about having a business coach, or you mentioned a business plan too. So let's wrap up here. If you could leave one tip for your audience, the audience talk about, think about, what would that be, one tip be, whether it be business, mom, nursing, whatever, you got the floor.
Emotional intelligence, that will always be my answer for everything. Emotional intelligence is the ability for you to understand and manage yourself so you can understand and manage people. And whether you are a nurse, whether you're a mom, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're dealing with people, either your little people, your kids, right? Which they're, listen, kids are strangers. I say that. Kids are strangers that we love because every day they wake up different. Like every day they're a different personality. And well, at least my kids. So I have an 8-year-old and I have a 4-month-old. And my 8-year-old, one minute she loves this thing and I buy a whole bunch of it because she loves it. And the next day she's like, yeah, I'm not into that anymore. It's like, what? I just spent all my money getting this for you because you said you liked it. Kids are strangers that we love, and they grow. And as they grow, they change because they're growing. And sometimes they test you as they're growing. And if you don't have emotional intelligence to restrain yourself from knocking them upside their head as they're trying to test you, it's like you're gonna find yourself in trouble, right? And same thing with my 4-month-olds. I'm a breastfeeding mom. My 4-month-old needs me to survive, right? And that can be very taxing. That's a full-time job within itself to provide milk for my child every time she's hungry, which to me is all the damn time. And so if I don't have the awareness to understand this is temporary, this is beneficial, this is bonding, I'm doing something that I chose to do, I choose to breastfeed, then I cannot get frustrated. I
Hmm.
made this choice. I could always just give her formula and have somebody else feed her. I could, but I made this choice. So I should not be upset that I'm not getting sleep because this comes with the choice that I made. That is emotional intelligence.
That's awesome. I like that. How can people find out about you and your business, your Nurse Academy?
Yes, well, you can find me on all the social platforms, including YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook at New Nurse Academy. I'm also on LinkedIn at Tiffany E. Gibson, and you can find me on my website, newnurse-academy.com, where you can learn ways to work with me, to collaborate with me, and to learn more about emotional intelligence.
Awesome. Well, Tiffany, thank you for your time. And this is the Your Money Hour podcast.